everybody. Thanks for joining this session. I'm Sam, an independent advisor for MEF on IoT, and I'd like to introduce our presenter for the next session on how eUICC is changing the IoT landscape. We will, of course, have some time for Q&A after the presentation, so please send through your questions in the Q&A section, and I'll try to get through them after the presentation. So please now let me introduce you to Niall Strachan, who is Head of Product Strategy at Pelion. Hi Niall, how's it going?
Hi Sam, nice to meet you. Hi everybody, my name's Niall. So I run product strategy at Pelion, where we are a connected device platform company where we provide IoT connectivity services, device management, edge management capabilities into the enterprise and OEM sector. So I'll give a bit of an overview today around how eUICC connectivity is changing the IoT landscape, what we are doing within it ourselves, what our customers are asking for, and some of the key benefits that these technologies bring.
Cool, we'll get back to you after your presentation, Niall. Cheers.
Okay. Brilliant. So first, a bit of to touch on who are Pelion. So Pelion are an ARM company that were formed through a series of acquisitions over the last 5 years that bring a broad suite of capabilities to the enterprise and OEM space. So we provide, as we say, cellular connectivity globally to enterprise customers for IoT. We provide this on for any customer to bring their own device, their own operating system, use our management capabilities to connect, manage, and onboard their devices. We have a large heritage within. We're built within ARM for the device ecosystem, and as we move out of ARM, becoming an ARM company with our own separate brand and our own separate capabilities, we feel that the market is very much crying out and asking for what we're calling a connected device platform, where it is the bringing together of our device management and our connectivity management expertise for more intelligent managed IoT solutions. And eUICC is one of those foundational technologies that's disrupting the market and disrupting how people build and connect their devices. So we're a very global company. We have a good amount of people spread across the world. Myself, I'm based in Glasgow in the United Kingdom. This is where there was the company Stream Technologies that was acquired 3 years ago. So the connectivity team is very much focused from Glasgow. It's where I have an entire career in IoT and M2M connectivity. We have 500 plus enterprise customers, a very large partner ecosystem that comes from silicon IP partners to our operators, to SIM manufacturers, systems integrators, and very, very vertical specific value-added resellers that will target markets that we can't reach directly. And we're built across 5 networked continents. So our key proposition that we support is that we really focus on simplifying a very complex landscape for customers. So we have a connected device platform that provides the orchestration, the management tools to allow people to securely onboard, develop, and manage their devices, but then side by side with the ongoing costs of connectivity and the ability to manage the application on the diverse device landscape. So when you have more feature gateways, we're able to deploy many different applications onto those gateways to be able to start to turn everything into a software problem. So our connectivity, very, very good global offering that we are pushing towards managed eUICC services that I'll cover off more today. Our device management platform is all about being able to remotely manage the device, the firmware, the identity, the application stack that is on that. And this is all around trying to make everything as remotely manageable as possible, giving our customers the most flexibility for when they're deploying assets in a single country, multi-country, or globally. And then this is all underpinned by our organization, our professional services that we will wrap for select clients who feel they need this, as well as our end-to-end security. So when we look at taking a customer coming to us, they're very focused on security first. They're building a new device. They're wanting to tackle security head on. Having the ability to build and onboard a device securely, but then coupled with secure connectivity gives a very, very good end-to-end story from our device to the cloud if they want to work with. So when our customers are speaking to us, they're really, they're going through new projects. Many of them will have had a successful IoT project and they're looking to take it to the next stage, or they're looking to come in and drive a new digital transformation project within their business. We find that the areas that customers are really focused on fixing is looking at how do they do things globally, multiple regions? How do they integrate it into their legacy systems? How do they integrate it into perhaps the new systems they're looking at procuring? Really, how do they focus on that security story from a network? Because having network-only security is insufficient. They're really looking at how to break down silos into their market, into their customers, into their deployment. We find that people who are deploying devices and expanding their traditional network out to involve the edge and towards IoT are trying to break down some of the existing IT systems that are utilizing this. They're driving towards increased intelligence, being able to have rapid innovation for the products as they deploy them, and creating a foundational layer that allows them to consistently update and change their business model and change their products moving forwards, so they can reduce costs and really try and create a more automated solution. But then all of this building is also very key, but the predictable reliability of the ongoing costs of managing devices is one of the biggest concerns for customers. When they're out there and they decide to update the firmware of 10,000 devices, how much will that actually cost them to do? Or if they're moving into a new market, what is the total cost of doing that? How do they actually operate in that market as well? So really helping guide our customers into larger, bigger picture models really is our sweet spot. So within the Internet of Things, I think there's so many various solutions. We see smart buildings on the left-hand side, right down to utility metering, that all have very, very different use cases and different requirements from the solution. Within Pelion, we supply connectivity across 4G, 5G down to low power wide area, from narrowband IoT to Cat-M1, and our customers come to us from a very, very horizontal suite of verticals. So we have a very good understanding of the market horizontally. We have a lot of requirements to come in from, as we say, smart manufacturing or utility metering, where it's management of millions of devices, compared to the management of smart buildings where it's in the thousands, but have very different requirements and different concerns. Something that's key is that as we push into this market, eUICC is a fundamental technology that we look to really improve the overall connectivity experience for every one of the solutions that we that we sell and speak to and target today. As we have quite a broad product portfolio, from management of devices to application on devices as well as connectivity, it's very key that we understand that the connectivity really creates that link between the device and the application. So having resilient, well understood, highly performant connectivity allows customers to really trust the data, trust the device, trust that the product is going to be operating as they expect it to. That allows them to really focus on their own business value, keeping ahead of the competition, simplifying their own processes, maybe cutting costs, and allowing them to really focus on the value that they want to derive out of IoT, rather than the intricacies, connectivity, or the nuances of managing device firmware frameworks for this. So eSIM is a fundamental technology that allows customers to essentially retain some of the control of what profile is on the physical SIM card. So it's a fairly well-known concept, but essentially it means that a SIM card in a legacy scenario was always locked to one connectivity vendor. eSIM is a technology that has been built over the last 5 years and standardized by the GSMA to essentially allow that SIM card to be reprovisioned over the air or reprovisioned at a device level for a consumer device. And from an IoT connectivity provider, this allows us to have a real level of differentiation, because it allows enterprises to retain a lot more control and flexibility and trust when they're deploying devices into a multi-country scenario, or a global scenario essentially, where legacy technologies such as multi-IMSI or permanent roaming is coming under scrutiny by maybe regulators, industry bodies, or even government bodies, where they're looking to stop temporary and permanent roaming into their countries, like for example Turkey. So when we look at eUICC as a fundamental flexible technology, it allows customers to really make sure that they can change that connectivity provider to a local provider later on. It eliminates that dependency on a single operator. It allows them to change it so that they can have fallback connectivity. With coming through Pelion, we can provide all of our operator partners on a single SIM for our customers so that they can have a single point of presence, a single SLA, single vendor to manage that, and allows them to have simplified logistics and manufacturing through having a single SKU to global connectivity. So when customers are coming to us, they're traditionally looking to combat what was a global roaming solution 5 years ago. They want something that they can have a simple, easy to deploy connectivity, that gives them local pricing in the region, and then it allows them to expand and bring new connectivity providers to those SIM cards later on in life. So Pelion, we fundamentally spent 4 or 5 years working on the standard, building and integrating the capabilities, working with the market, our operator partners to bring this vision to reality. And until now, we've seen things like costs or complexities in the technologies have been a difficult thing for the IoT market to stomach. And as we've evolved our product offering, we've really simplified what we push to our customers. So really offering all of our connectivity providers on a single SIM, tightly integrated into our connectivity management platform that has been enhanced with a lot of features and capability to manage eSIM profiles. And then every piece of our, every operator that we work with is integrated into our secure data network globally. So this means that devices are attaching in the region, they're attaching to a local profile, they're working in an approved, regulated fashion. The data is peering in that country and region, and it's got an identity that is understood by the application stack. So making it easy to have a simple, deployable global connectivity offering. So when we look at the life cycle, customers are very aware that the traditional model would be that they manufacture their device, they select the SIM card is personalized with the credentials, they distribute it, activate it, goes into the operational mode, and then when they look to change connectivity supplier, they have to change the SIM card and they move into that, they just start that process again. That can be a fairly stomachable concept for people who are able to visit their devices, every 6 months or 3 months, things like passenger Wi-Fi backhaul for trains, trams, buses. These devices are going into a garage or a depot every night, essentially. So they have the ability to be visited by an engineer. But if you're really deploying something with a 5 to 10 year lifetime that you do not want to have, or you may not be able to have human interaction with the physical device, being able to have a much more flexible management process of changing the subscriber later on is key. So if you look at the US market and the Canadian market, there was many European providers that were roaming into the States for many, many years have lost their roaming privileges for permanent roaming into that market. So the customers have had to go and revisit their devices, swap out new SIM cards, and come back and essentially go through quite an expensive proposition to maintain their devices status. Looking forwards, customers are saying, how do I protect myself from that moving again? And that's deploying using eSIM technology, so they can change that profile and change that in an accredited fashion very simply. So within Pelion, what are we investing in to make this happen? So we have 4 key work streams essentially. One is our global connectivity bootstrap. This is a capability that allows the eSIM to first be deployed, and it has global connectivity on a roaming basis. So that is the ability to essentially wake up, speak to a network anywhere in the world, and then dial home and tell Pelion where they are, what network they're attached to, and then we understand who it belongs to, and that allows us to then reprovision that SIM card over the air. So we have key partnerships with remote subscription platforms that allow us to essentially orchestrate the profiles to make that happen. We then are working with all of our operator partners, in Europe, America, and APAC to really drive and have local profiles for those regions so that we can actually download them to those SIM cards for our customers on their behalf. And then looking at how we actually lower the cost of IoT connectivity, working with module providers, silicon IP partners within ARM, our RSP partners, our MNO partners, to really lower the costs of every element, and then also to then enhance and work with hardware and gateway providers to start integrating eSIM at a very, very early stage for the market. And this then allows us to have the single global eSIM, so that customers can have a build once and deploy anywhere feeling of their deployments. So the drivers for change towards this, traditional SIM on the left, eSIM on the right. When you look at trusted network access, they both revolve around certificate-based authentication. So both operating in the same mode. When they look at the key use cases of it, the conventional SIM was manufactured for a consumer use case. It was built for a phone, essentially, to be able to swap in and out. eSIM is really driven for that IoT machine-to-machine offering where it's low physical input to the device. The ability to change MNOs is swapping hardware for a consumer and then downloading a profile for eSIM. The security is, it's very, very focused towards eSIM, where it allows you to control the credentials for the SIM card, but then also the fact that it can be an embedded SIM card as well that allows the IoT device to have a more physical device level security. It's a very lower cost to operationally administer to this. So in IoT, a lot of customers, their products and projects have had a lot of cost from the total cost of ownership for an IoT project. And a lot of this is because the administration wasn't known to them how to administrate and manage fleets of connected devices throughout the project lifecycle. So eSIM really helps them to lower that. And that's because it enables a global SKU for global OEMs. So if you're manufacturing in Asia, having one SKU of the device that can be deployed globally is very key, rather than having multiple SKUs of that product for the US, for Europe, for Asia. That adds more cost into management of this. And then that production and logistics can add, that story brings a lot of unnecessary costs and delays, and eSIM streamlines that process. So one of the questions that comes on is, will eSIM mean the end of roaming for IoT perspective? Personally, I don't believe so. I think IoT roaming is roaming at the moment created off of many consumer roaming agreements from the past. And IoT is becoming a new use case with new specific products that are working and running into these markets. And there are many group operators, such as Vodafone, that will want to maintain roaming across their key markets from a single offering. So roaming will remain. However, it doesn't mean that it's not going to come under its pressures from a cost perspective or a regulatory perspective. Countries may look to move against IoT roaming in a permanent scenario because they want the device to have a local profile, local credentials, have the data stored locally in the country, in the region, and work with a local carrier as well. And that fundamental capability is what eUICC brings. So eSIM will not replace roaming. They're two different technologies, but eSIM will fundamentally augment roaming to give the customers a more protective product to play with. So benefits, device users will have to manage multiple SIMs. Solutions providers, the remote management is, it's going to be easier for them. Network operators, it makes them easier to tackle and move into new markets. By opening up their markets for eSIM, it allows them to become a new provider in their market for certain use cases. It gives a real trust within the market, within the ecosystem, because of the GSMA and the weight of all the operators behind this, and the SIM manufacturers, and the general IoT ecosystem. The movement gives a very good level of trust across connected devices. It allows device OEMs to really optimize their new categories of connected devices as they move into manufacturing them. And then it allows that just a simplified logistics for the distribution channel. When we're looking at a single Pelion, we've invested heavily into this. We see the market doing similar around four key things. A single eSIM, a global bootstrap profile that allows that device to wake up in its initial boot and have global connectivity, or the ability to fall back to that bootstrap profile so that it's always got the ability to actually be contactable, being able to change and remotely download that initial profile, and then changing them as required. And this gives that zero-touch activation where customers can really deploy one asset and then manage it in the field very simply later on. So again, I've kind of covered these points as I speak through it, but around the protection of roaming restrictions and device longevity, permanent roaming is a capability that allows customers to deploy, in multiple countries as operators start to build this. And with low power wide area, we find that roaming capabilities within LPWA space are very new commercially and technically. So like narrowband IoT roaming agreements are there, but they're maybe not as open as accessible for the connectivity space. And then narrowband IoT also does not work from an eUICC standard. So there's a lot of work bringing narrowband IoT towards an eSIM capability. And then LTE CAT-M from an LPWA space, there are also the roaming agreements are potentially not there as well. So actually having an eUICC that has multiple carriers, multiple capabilities on it, allows customers to actually have a more flexible solution today by having all the different agreements from different vendors, such as Vodafone, Jersey Telecom, Tele2, Verizon, that allow them to have the best available connectivity that there is today, and then as that changes, as the market changes over time, be able to manage those changes. So I think our 4 steps that we talk around, eSIM is more than just a form factor for our customers. It's a new way of connecting and securing their devices. That bootstrap profile is a key capability that customers look for, as eSIM with the ability to change profiles or download new profiles in the future. This is all about a protection against change. So being able to fall back to a bootstrap provider that will always have that initial ability to boot and wake up and essentially phone home is key. A management platform that is able to really take the administration out of managing lots and lots of profiles in bulk, and being able to trigger campaigns of profile changes is key. And then looking at the position of that provider with the market. They have their agreements with their operators. What is their position with the operator partners and their remote subscription platforms, so that that when customers are, if they're looking to deploy an eSIM, they're also selecting the people who are with the right position in the market. Something that that's quite unique within our stable is our network infrastructure. So we integrate our network infrastructure to give our customers a single point of presence for that connected device. So the data will always peer with the same identity for the customer. So it makes it very easy for them to understand what the data is coming from each network. So if the eSIM has, for example, a Verizon profile and a Telus profile, if we swap between the two, the customer will see the change in the IP address, they will see the change in what the device is sending the data, but the identity of the device is always remaining the same. So they can trust that the device is uncompromised compared to the profile that is actually sending the data to their network. With Pelion, we worked and created a large amount of agreements with our operator partners to provide the capability to deploy globally. And as we see, we have local agreements, roaming agreements, all based on our eSIM that gives a customer a very good footprint to deploy globally. And as our customers start to really scale into one market, into one region, if an example of a customer would start to be very, very successful in the Australian market, we would go and approach Telstra, TPG, or Spark to have a local profile. Then we can bring those profiles to the customers later on in life. So very focused on that global position, but you can see that it's through group operators at the moment. Okay. So, finally, just to really focus around, just the three key banners. Logistics for the Internet of Things. We want to remove complexity. The connectivity world is a very complex, moving beast that has so many different partners and different technologies moving at all times, and we want to be able to help customers future-proof the choice of their connected devices they deploy it. So if there's any questions, we can move on. I think we've got a few minutes left.
Thanks, Niall. Yeah, great presentation. We've had another question from the audience. I think you talked a bit about how you work with operators, but is there anything that they can particularly do to optimize their eSIM delivery to kind of speed that up?
Yeah, I think the key thing is that eSIM is a standard that is very open for all the operators to work with. It's a standardized approach, but there's really only 4 vendors in the market that are selling eSIM capable solutions to the operators. And those incumbent players traditionally have not worked very well together because they're trying to protect their own market share. And Verizon may select one vendor and then not want to work with the choice of another. So that traditionally can slow down the overall, overall deployment speeds and then overall openness of the technology. I'd say that has changed a lot in the last year. Lots of use cases have been driving the adoption and driving it through, a business case to the operator, so they're happier to move faster. But actually, just breaking down some of the silos and actually being more open to use cases and IoT use cases onto the market will generally help.
Yeah, so talking about use cases then, so which vertical kind of sectors are you seeing the most adopting or fastest adopters in the eSIM market at the moment?
Yeah, traditionally it would have been high value assets, connected cars, for example, because it was a more quite a costly way of deploying connectivity until recently. As the market has lowered the cost of everything from the SIM to the module to the profile delivery, it has become much more open for IoT business use cases. So in the last year, we saw a massive uptake from the supply chain, global supply chain companies looking for eSIM solutions because supply chains were changing rapidly because of COVID and what was happening with political pressures on China. And we saw many companies looking at delivering global tracking solutions on an eSIM, but then also last mile solutions that were reducing human contact for delivery as well. Remote building access, for example, to be deployed where devices will be going on to the sides of buildings for 5 to 10 years, and they don't want to have to go out and revisit them. So eSIM became very key to them. We also saw quite a large uptake in eSIM from digital signage. People who are looking to deploy electric advertising around Europe were very focused on what was happening with roaming, and if there was a change in the European roaming legislation over the next 5 years, they were looking at deploying on an eSIM for that protective nature.
Yeah, great. Okay, we had another question, but we're out of time, so maybe we can get that answered in the chat on the system. But thanks a lot for your presentation and answering those questions, Niall. It was great. We'll go on to the next session now, I think.
Great. Thank you very much, everybody. Cheers.